Well, welcome back to another episode of What Did I Want to Be When I Grow Up? We've got Sam and Jeremy both here.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey,
How
Sam.
you doing?
I'm putting your name up on the screen, though it messed up my background. I got our astronaut in the background today because, one of the things people wanted to be when they grew up was an astronaut. So it's an
That's right.
astronaut today. This astronaut kind of looks like he's trying to grab my head, though. So if he starts moving, if he or she, you can't see their face. So whomever's in there, if they start grabbing at me, let me know. But it sounds like you've got somebody
Fine.
to start us off with today. So who is that?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
Don't give away the name yet.
Can't. Yeah.
Time for some
Yeah. I was
clues.
gonna say, like, wait a minute. You can't cheat there, Jeremy.
Then we'll talk about
Okay.
what they wanted to be when they grew up.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me read a few clues to you. Okay. This
Mhm.
person. Don't worry if you don't get this. Obviously, this is more just an icebreaker, but it's interesting. Reading about these people. I wonder, like, would Jeremy be able to guess this? I know, like, if you're a fan of this sort of thing that the person was involved in,
Mhm.
you'd probably be able to get it right away. If you weren't, I don't know. I am pretty sure I probably would not have gotten this person.
All right.
But here goes. Okay. This person graduated from Mississippi State University with a bachelor's degree in accounting.
Oh,
and
that's a
later
giveaway.
graduated.
I'm just kidding.
Yes.
That doesn't. Go ahead. Keep going.
And later graduated from University of Mississippi. Sorry, Yeah, that's right. University of Mississippi School of Law.
Mm.
This person practiced law for about a decade. During that time, they served in the Mississippi House of Representatives.
Mhm.
Later became a writer and is famous for writing legal thrillers. Now, if you have a guess, go ahead. This next one might give it away.
Okay, that sounds
should
a little. At first, I was not getting any of it, but it totally makes sense with the legal background. And there are some legal thrillers that I am a huge fan of. A lot of the John Grisham novels.
Yes.
For example, is that John Grisham?
Yes.
Awesome.
John Grisham.
Very good. I
Yeah.
love that one. I love the
Okay.
firm and the client. And
Yeah.
long before the movies came out, I was always really interested in the books. They were always a great read.
Yeah. I truthfully have not read much of his stuff. I have seen a couple of his movies, and I did at one point. I started reading The Firm. I thought that was a pretty cool one. I must have gotten busy with school or something, so I stopped and never picked it up again. But okay, here are a couple of things I thought were really fascinating about
And
him.
by
Okay,
the way,
in terms
the
of
firm and the client, both really good reads. I would recommend
yeah,
those at least. There are a lot of them, though.
yeah. Okay, so in terms of trying to kind of decipher what did he want to be when he grew up, well, this was a pretty good hint right here. It said, as a child, he wanted to be a baseball player. However, Grisham gave up playing baseball at the age of 18 after a game in which a pitcher aimed a beanball at him,
Ooh,
like trying to hit him,
yeah.
and narrowly missed. And then sometime after that, he worked a bunch of different tradesman jobs, like, for example, building fences, doing some plumbing and asphalt work, but found no future in any of it. In fact, this is a crazy
Wow.
story. While he was doing asphalt, he was about, how old was he? 17 or 18, I think. A gunfight broke out among the crew, which caused him to think seriously about college.
Yeah. That's funny because in our family, my family growing up with,
Yeah.
I've mentioned before, my mom ran the family business. My grandpa
Yeah.
started it on that side of the family long time ago. He and his wife, my grandmother, they both served in the military, U.S. military, during I don't even remember which World War. One or two. I'd have to go look it up to be sure. But
Yeah.
grandma was in. I think my grandma was a Marine and my grandpa was in the Navy. And it actually raised a lot of interesting eyebrows when they got married because they're from, sort of competing branches of the military. What are you doing marrying somebody from the other? That was kind of funny. So my
Yeah.
mom ran that business for decades. And she made us work at the greenhouse. So we were growing garden plants and things like that. It was a lot like a farm, but it was seasonal, so it wasn't quite as difficult as a farm. We would grow plants inside greenhouses, starting in the middle of the winter, and sell them all spring, and then we finally get some of the summer off. So it was a lot of hard work. And they even
Right.
made jokes about it, that my dad, who's a college professor, would come and help sometimes, and he would get to dig ditches. My grandpa wouldn't let anyone drive the tractor until he passed away. He was the only one. So, and then later on, my dad finally got to drive the tractor. So there were jokes about, no, if you
You
want to
you
dig
wouldn't
ditches.
even let your dad drive the
Yeah.
tractor?
Yeah, finally, my brother, after my grandpa passed away, my brother started doing it all the time, so he kind of became the go-to person for the big equipment. But we had jokes about, if you want to be able to dig a trench here, you have to have a college degree, because my dad had a PhD. He's a college professor and digging trenches, while the rest of us are like lugging around flats full of plants. Long story short, that was really, I wonder how much of it they did on purpose that way, or how much of it was, kids, you need to work during every spring. We didn't have weekends. We had to work really hard all spring long, but we saved up, and that's how we earned money to do family vacations and things like that, because there just wasn't enough income, even with my dad as a professor and my mom working the family business. That wasn't a lot of income, so that paid for family vacations. So, but they joked about it later on, but I think there was something to it where, none of us really wanted to keep working at the greenhouse. So we all went and got college degrees, and all of us did. All 5 of my brothers and my little sister, we all got college degrees so we wouldn't have to work at the greenhouse anymore. Then when my mom wanted to retire, which only happened just a few years ago, none of us kids wanted to take it over. So one of my cousins ultimately took it over with the help of my aunt that worked with my mom. It's kind of my mom and my aunt were co-operators of the thing. But it works really well. Being in a situation like that, like him, John Grisham, doing asphalt work, having the gunfight break out among the crew, he decided to go to college. But what was fascinating is he went to college and became an attorney, or at least went to law school. I assume he passed the bar and became an attorney, but then turned that into being an author. So which one of those had a greater impact on the world, whether for good or bad? Probably mostly for good. Had John Grisham stayed an attorney, he probably could have done some wonderful things. If he'd been a prosecutor, he probably could have helped bring justice to people who really needed it. Had he been a defender, he would have helped keep some innocent people from going to jail and make sure everyone gets a fair trial. Instead, he writes books. So you might argue, well, what good does that do anybody? He just became famous. But think about how many young people he inspired to possibly go into law. He also wrote Pelican Brief, right?
Yeah.
So
that was one of them.
Whether you agree with the whole idea of that book and that movie, which is it has a very strong environmentalist bent to it, for better or worse. And ultimately, the attorney goes to argue, and she tracks down what's going on and figures out that somebody, I think it was, I don't want to give away too much of it, but somebody assassinated someone on the Supreme Court so that a particular case could get before the Supreme Court, and it would be found in favor of some developers who wanted to drill for oil on some wetlands or something like that. So, if you don't like that sort of message, if you feel that that's kind of preachy, maybe you wouldn't enjoy it as much. But it does inspire people who may have become environmental defense attorneys who are now working for nonprofits.
Right.
Or similarly, you could take from the same thing. If you don't like that particular cause, maybe you become a young attorney that fights for another cause that maybe is closer to your heart. But either way, it could have made a big difference in the world. Either as an individual attorney, he could have changed the lives of several people or a lot of people, but maybe this way he affected a lot more. Wow, I was like talking without taking a breath. Keep going.
No. I'm here to listen. I thought that's really, I hadn't even gone down that train of thought. I think that's really excellent though, because it seems like, obviously there are all these lawyer jokes out in the world and everything, and sometimes it's for good reason, but from the little bit that I read about him, John Grisham seemed like he was a genuinely good person, and wanted to do good in the world, as a lawyer and in politics too, actually. Which was something I didn't know he was in politics. So that was pretty interesting to read about. So that's an interesting question that you bring up. where was his impact felt more, or where could it have been felt more? Because he practiced for about a decade or so,
Hmm.
practiced law before he got into writing, and so he wasn't a lawyer for too long, really. Um, but that's you bring up some really good points about being an author and inspiring people, and because we all find inspiration from various sources, and
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I think that's really cool. I love I love that he was inspired. He was inspired to go to college after a gunfight broke out.
Yeah.
I can't remember what his parents did, but they either didn't have a lot of formal education or something like that.
Hmm.
I don't remember. And so for him to go to college, I think was quite a stretch from what he was used to.
I'm actually curious about that. Without going into too much detail, I don't want to sidetrack you too much, but what's your
No,
background? Because I've talked a little bit about my parents and where I've come from and what
yeah.
helped lead me to where I am. What about you? How did you get to be where you are?
So my dad has passed away, but he was a handyman, jack of all trades, sort of guy. He could, and he, it's funny, he learned a lot of his skills because he never had money to pay someone to like fix his car
Hmm.
or to repair something in the house. So he had to figure it out on his own. Um, and so, whether it was reading books or learning from other people or whatever it was, he figured out how to do all that stuff. And he was really into woodworking, and he loved, he had this art. Every home we lived in, the garage was always the shop, and it was never for the car. It was always for saws and tools and all these things. And he'd make cabinets and tables, and he
Cool.
really liked making little wooden toys and stuff like that. Um, for like his grandchildren and those sorts of things. And my mom for as long as I can remember, she's been a teacher, um,
Cool.
adjunct teacher in college. So
Hmm.
never a professor, but her background is in writing actually. So, something like John Grisham, she'd be all over it. and,
Hmm.
um, and so she actually teaches creative writing, and she'll teach other classes sometimes when she's asked to teach like English classes or literature classes. But her favorite thing is creative writing. She got a master's degree in creative writing, and so she enjoys teaching, but she really loves writing. And so that's my background. So like you talk about growing up and not having money for things, and you had to like work extra to pay for vacations and things like that. It was a similar thing, only
Yeah.
we never went on vacation. I'd have friends who had, growing up, I grew up in Utah, and I'd have friends who would go down to like Disneyland every summer or,
Hmm.
every other summer. There's always like, they're always going to California because, I-15 runs right down the middle of Utah down
Yeah,
to
it's
LA. And
like 8 or 9 hour
um,
drive. Not too bad.
yeah, yeah, so not bad. And so it was like it seemed like everybody went to California for a vacation, at some point. We never did. We never went anywhere.
Hmm.
We lived next to a park, and that was my life. My friends lived around the corner from me, and we just would hang out and we just played in the park. Like playing night games like capture the flag or hide and seek or whatever it was, or we'd play football or played soccer a little bit, not a ton growing up. But anyway, that was how we grew up. And so, the thing I think is really I think that's really relatable, and you find this a lot with John Grisham, being inspired by some event to go to, make something more of himself. You see that all the time. I remember a guy who I met who worked for a pros- I always have such a hard time saying this word, prosthetics. Is that, am I
Prostheticist?
saying? Yeah,
Someone
that
who
that
makes
is one.
artificial
That's one
limbs.
of the, yes, and I wondered how did he get inspired? to do that, and he had, as a kid, I can't remember what his situation was, but he needed leg braces or something like that. I can't remember what it was, you know. And so that's what inspired him to get into that career field. I mean, who grows up even knowing about that stuff, let alone being inspired to do that? Well, maybe you were impacted by someone else helping you out, you know. Or
Right.
in the case of John Grisham, you were inspired by someone who was trying to kill you. Um, and so you decided, you know, maybe this isn't the right line of work for me.
That's just a scary
Um,
one. Yeah, it's not often you get your life threatened at your place of business, you know? And think
I
about it.
know.
What exactly was the conversation about that took them working on asphalt to the point where they're shooting at each other? You know,
Yeah,
were they arguing over whether or not it was smooth enough or whose job it was to shovel and stand and have their ankles get burned from the heat? That's just
maybe,
That's an
maybe.
amazing
Oh
story. You
my
know, what
goodness.
if that had never happened? Would we never have gotten John Grisham books? Would he have never gone the way that he did?
Right. Yeah, he may have been a tradesman his whole life.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. Um, you know, not everybody has the Jimmy Stewart experience of, you know, It's a Wonderful Life, seeing kind of two different tracks of how their
Yeah.
life could have gone. Um, that, yeah, that would have been that's an interesting thought, you know.
Hmm.
One event could change the whole course of your life.
Well, and
Um,
I think there are similar things, not to get us too far into other authors, but, authors of a lot of famous books. I mean, the ones that come to mind, author of all the Harry Potter series. She had
right.
gotten into she was kind of in a bad place with um, financially and with a bad marriage and all kinds of other things. And had that not happened, and if she had not been riding home on the train from wherever it was, Manchester or something like that, one night, and the characters came to her, and I remember seeing something about a description that said, if she had had a piece of paper, she may not have actually been able to develop the characters as well because she didn't have anything to write on. She had fully fleshed out the characters of the major Ron, Hermione, Harry in her head before she had gotten back home where she could get something to write things down on. And that may have actually helped her develop the characters better before she put pen to paper and actually started writing and typing. And like so many authors, she was rejected by a ton of different publishers before it finally became this worldwide success.
Yeah.
And similarly, I don't know the backstory as much, but the author of the whole series of the vampire books, Twilight series.
Oh,
Um, I really should know her name off the top of my head because we went to the same college and apparently we were there about the same time. Not that we ever met
oh,
because there were
really?
like 30,000 students there, but apparently we were there about the same time and probably never met. It would be really cool someday to find out that English whatever class I was in, she was actually there and just never
Oh,
got the
yeah.
chance to meet, right? A brush with
Yeah,
greatness.
that'd be that'd be incredible. It, how would you feel if you were not only were you in the same English class, but you were the inspiration for the vampire books?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
For that, like, wait a minute, I don't know if I
Well,
like that so
I,
much.
I didn't get very much sun. I might have looked pretty pale, but
Oh, that'd be, I think that'd
back
be kind of insulting. Like,
back then I
uh,
actually had more hair. Maybe I was an inspiration for werewolves. I don't know. I know. No, I don't think so. There's an enormous amount of creativity that goes into those things, and if I was an inspiration for anything, it would have been like a minor character that doesn't even get a name, right?
man number two at the
Yeah.
bar.
Hmm. I don't even get a
Yeah.
line. If I was played by somebody on a movie, they wouldn't even be able to get their Screen Actors Guild card because they wouldn't have a line to deliver.
That's right. That's right. Um, oh my goodness. Let me share this with you. You alluded to this a little bit. Um, let's see. Okay, so John Grisham's first book, his first novel was A Time to Kill, and it was
Mm-hmm.
inspired by a real case.
Mm-hmm.
That it wasn't his case. I don't know the details necessarily. It said it wasn't his case, but he was in the courtroom.
Hmm.
So he must have been one of the other lawyers. He was in the courtroom and heard the details of the case and everything. But um, so his first book was A Time to Kill, and he started writing it sometime after this case that he was in, that he was involved in. And it said, what I read was that after he finished his first book, A Time to Kill, he took it to publishers, but was rejected by 28 publishers
Wow.
before Winwood Press, which was, I don't know if they're well known now, but at least at that time they were not known. I'm not going to pretend like I'm familiar with the publishing industry. But finally, Winwood Press, who was a relatively unknown publisher, agreed to publish it. So a couple thoughts here. I am really impressed that, after the first 5 or 6 or, so like rejections, even like, I don't know, like 10 or 12, like if you're rejected that many times, when do you start to think, maybe I just don't have anything here, but
Right.
he was rejected 28 times before finally being published. That is insane. That's insane
Yeah.
to me. But I mean, like, kudos to him though, like for just sticking with it. Like he really believed in himself, obviously, and knew that there's someone out there who would take his book. And thank goodness he did. Thank goodness he kept going with it, and thank goodness that
Hmm.
Winwood Press was there to pick it up.
It makes you
Um,
wonder how many authors out there
yeah,
write books that get rejected by 5 or 10 publishers, but if they found just the right publisher, they actually would be a major success like that. How many books are we missing
yeah,
out on that otherwise could be inspiring? And there are probably some books that probably honestly never should have been published, but hopefully don't. And the same kind of thing applies to taking a little twist on this just for a second.
yeah,
There are probably a lot of people who miss out on opportunities just because I don't know where or when they're born. They don't meet the right person at the right time or something like that. That could have made a really big positive impact in the world, but it just doesn't happen because of the way the world fell together on that particular day. Think of all the things that could be that much better. What new inventions, technologies, better laws. Who knows how much better the world could be if we got the right people in the right places at the right times. And
yeah,
I don't know what it takes to make that a little bit better. I don't know that there's a ton you can do directly, but I think in reaching out to individuals. One of the things I like to do is go to schools and talk to kids and try and inspire them to go
yeah,
into technology fields. And I don't know how many of them actually latch onto that. Some of them were probably already headed that direction anyway. But maybe getting to see somebody who is working in one of those fields and not in the traditional way that shows up in a movie, right? They're not in the
right.
laboratory. Instead of being the little nameless character in the background of the laboratory, they get to be the more of like the Tony Stark character, but he's kind of messed up too. So you want to be somebody who gets to create something amazing and share it with the world, but not everybody gets those chances and opportunities. So makes you wonder who have we
Yeah,
missed out on, right?
yeah, and kind of going along with those thoughts, like how many people, there's certainly an aspect of, having the right people in place to recognize, like in this case, a publisher recognizing that John Grisham's book was good.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly that aspect. People giving other people opportunities. How many people on the other side just quit after, the 5th rejection?
Yeah.
But they have something really great, and if they just kept going, eventually they would find the right match. Um, what's the saying? I don't know how famous or popular the saying is, but is it there's no such thing as luck, but luck is like when
But there's a
preparation
quote
and
like that.
opportunity meet, something
That's
like
what,
that.
yes. Luck is when preparation and opportunity meet and coincide.
Yeah,
Being
yeah,
prepared for an opportunity is just as important as getting the opportunity because
yeah,
you can meet a famous person, a movie producer, but if you haven't finished writing your screenplay, what's the point? They're not going to see it. You're not going to get published. Now that
Right.
probably rarely happens anyway, but in
Yeah.
that case, preparation and opportunity can simply mean um, part of the preparation might be willingness to work. I think there are a lot of people who have gotten job opportunities that have been careers for them because they were willing to work hard. Going to maybe it's you want to be a machinist and you love working on stuff, so you go hang around the machine shop. But your willingness to work is being part of that preparation. And when they say, "Hey, would you sweep up around here?" and you're willing to do it, and you clean up and you put things away, and then they give you a shot at maybe eventually starting to work with the tools and eventually become an amazing machinist and an inventor, and you come up with your own new, I don't know whatever it is you want to design.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've even had a little bit of an opportunity like that one in college. We should probably wrap up here in a minute. Let me finish off with one
Yeah. No,
quick
you're
story
good.
here.
You're good.
So I was in college and needed to get one more class in, and I really wanted to do something that was connected to theater and the arts and all of that, because the bulk of my course load was all in engineering at the time. And the
Yeah.
class that I really wanted to take was theater makeup. So doing all
Oh,
kinds
yeah.
of theater makeup. It was the introductory one. So I walked in there, and of course, it's a very popular class. So they were booked completely full. They had no openings. They already had a waiting list. So I talked to the professor. She said, "Okay, go ahead and put your name down on this waiting list." And then I just hung around for a few minutes. And the existing students, this was already their maybe second class, they were already working on their projects. And one of the people said, talk to the professor, "Hey, I really need a model. I need somebody to do the makeup on." And normally the students were taking turns or something like that. And there was nobody available. And I said, "Hey, I can do that," and just volunteered. And sat down, and they did whatever it was. It was probably just a basic male youth corrective or something like that, and
Yeah.
got the makeup project done. And the teacher was so impressed by that, she put me to the head of the line and added me to the class immediately. And I got to take the class that semester.
Really?
So that was one of those preparation and opportunity. Not preparation because I had any skills in theater makeup. Not that I was
Yeah.
going to be a great student or even a good student. I was probably mediocre at best, but it was so much fun. It was
Yeah.
a great opportunity. But the willingness to put forth some of that effort. There are still some people who are willing to put forth effort that simply don't get that opportunity, right? Being at
Right.
college in the first place was still an important part of that. So yes, there's some of that that requires confluence of events to become luck, as it were. In a lot of those cases, luck also involves a lot of hard work. And that'll be something that might be fun to talk about a bit more. Some of the things that we do in our country to try and encourage and promote people who otherwise don't have opportunities to get opportunities they otherwise wouldn't. And some people might perceive it just as, well, it's a quota system or something like that. But there are a lot of people who simply aren't being encouraged. They don't have that example in their family. And giving them that opportunity is often what can make a generational shift. Now, yes, some of them miss out on the opportunity, right? Some people get
Yeah.
college scholarships and they go there because they're looking for a big party school. All right, it didn't help them. But just like the little
Yeah.
kid walking down the beach that was throwing the starfish or whatever back into the ocean, the person says,
All
"What
right.
on the world are you doing? You can't make a difference. Look, there are thousands of them or tens of thousands of them out here." The kid picks up one more, throws it into the ocean, and says, "Well, it made a difference to that one." And
Yeah.
I think that can apply to all of us in getting and giving opportunities. And
Yeah.
hopefully we don't just get one shot to make it in life. Hopefully we get more than one, especially if we miss out on one or blow it on one of those
Right.
opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly. That's really awesome. I think that's a great point to wrap up.
Awesome. Well,
End on a high note.
yeah, exactly. So for all of you out there who are watching after the fact, we haven't seen any comments coming in live, but please leave comments, subscribe, tap the bell so you get notification when we do go live. Please watch them afterwards. We're going to check back and keep an eye on comments. So if you have something you'd like to comment about the discussion today, if you'd like to tell us what did you want to be when you grew up, please put it in the comments and we'll take a look at that and maybe get a chance to talk about it in an upcoming episode. But it's great to be with you today. Go out there, make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.